I was only 9 when a glass of orange juice changed everything. A flight attendant rolled her eyes at me, sighed like I ruined her day, and slammed the tray so hard it shook. My mom said nothing. Not yet. She just smiled, tight-lipped, trembling. I thought the worst was over. I was wrong. What followed wasn't just humiliation. It was a storm, quiet, calculated, and irreversible. I watched my mom press send on a message that shattered lives, including hers. But the real twist? That didn't happen until I knocked on the door of the woman who broke me. They say kids remember strange things. The color of the sky on a bad day. The sound of a door slamming before someone yells. For me, it was a glass of orange juice, and the way my mom's hand tightened around mine, just a little too long. We had just boarded the Skylux flight to London. First class. My seat was next to the window, and I pressed my face to it like I always did, even though we were still on the ground. The clouds hadn't shown up yet, but the air already felt different, thicker somehow. My mom, Evelyn Carter, sat beside me, elegant as always in her beige silk blouse and tailored navy coat. Her hair was tied in a loose bun. She looked calm. She always looked calm. She leaned over and whispered, "Excited?" I nodded. I noticed the people around us, men in suits, women with diamonds the size of grapes. They glanced at us and then away, quickly. I was used to that. My mom never wore loud clothes or anything flashy, but she had that presence, the kind that made people straighten their backs without knowing why. I liked that about her. The flight attendant came before takeoff. She wore red lipstick and heels so high they made my ankles hurt just looking at them. Her name tag said Jessica. She smiled, but not at me, through me, like I was furniture. "Welcome aboard," she said, too brightly. "May I get you something to drink?" Mom smiled, polite. "Lily, sweetie, you can order first." I blinked up at the lady. Orange juice, please?" Jessica's smile froze for half a second. Then came the sigh, long, theatrical. She didn't say anything, but her eyes rolled so hard I thought they'd fall out of her head. I shrank in my seat. Mom's smile didn't change, but her fingers, resting lightly on the armrest, curled in. "I'll have sparkling water," she added softly. Jessica didn't reply. She turned on her heel and disappeared. I looked at Mom. "Did I say it wrong?" "No, honey," she said gently. "You were perfect." A few minutes passed. I watched as Jessica served the man across the aisle a whiskey with 2 perfect ice cubes and a cloth napkin folded like a flower. She laughed at something he said, then moved on, without looking at us. When she finally came back, she held a silver tray with 1 glass of juice and a bottle of sparkling water. She placed the glass in front of me, or rather, dropped it. Not hard enough to spill, but enough to make it bounce. The tray clattered. The glass wobbled. Juice sloshed. My heart jumped. Jessica didn't say a word, just walked off. I stared at the juice, then at Mom. Her face hadn't changed. Still calm, but I saw it now. The tightness at her jawline, the way her eyes followed Jessica's back, unblinking. "Mama?" I asked. She blinked, slowly, and turned to me. "Drink up, sweetie, before it gets warm." I took a sip. It tasted sour. From the corner of my eye, I saw people watching us. Some quickly looked away. Others didn't bother. I didn't understand. We'd flown before, lots of times, but never like this. Never where we were. Invisible. Jessica returned a few rows later, leaning over another passenger, laughing at a joke I couldn't hear. Her eyes met mine for a split second, and then skipped over me like I was just air. That hurt worse than yelling. I whispered, "Did I do something bad?" Mom reached over and took my hand. Her palm was warm. Her voice was quiet. "No, not even a little bit." But her eyes weren't on me. They were on Jessica, who was now chatting with another attendant near the galley. They both glanced in our direction. My ears burned. The cabin lights dimmed for takeoff. Engines hummed. My heart beat fast, not from excitement, but something else. Something that made me want to crawl under my seat and disappear. I tried to focus on the TV screen in front of me. Cartoons. Something with bright colors and silly music. But I couldn't pay attention. Jessica came back down the aisle. Her heels clicked with precision. She passed us without a word. No check-in, no smile, not even a glance. Mom sat straighter. Her breathing had changed. Shallow, measured. Her hand tightened around mine again. This wasn't just rudeness. I could feel it now. Like something sharp in the air. Like shame. But I hadn't done anything to be ashamed of. That was the part I couldn't make sense of. Another attendant passed by with dinner menus. She handed them to the rows in front and behind us. Skipped our row entirely. I turned to Mom. They forgot us. No, she said softly. They didn't. We sat in silence for a while. My stomach rumbled. The smell of warm bread and garlic filled the cabin. I watched a silver fork slip from someone's tray and land gently on the floor. Except it wasn't just any fork. It was ours. The young flight attendant didn't stop, didn't turn back, just kept walking. The fork lay there, alone, gleaming against the carpet, like something abandoned. I looked at Mom again. She unbuckled her seatbelt, quiet, graceful, bent down, picked up the fork with the napkin in her hand, cleaned it, handed it to me. "Here you go, darling," she said. "Use this one." Her voice didn't shake, but her hand did. I looked at her and wanted to ask, "Why don't you say something? Why do you let them treat us this way?" But I didn't. I just held the fork, and something inside me cracked. It lay there, still and shining under the dimmed cabin lights. A simple fork, metal and silent, but heavier than it should be. Maybe nobody else saw it the way I did. Maybe to them, it was just a piece of cutlery. But to me, at that moment, it looked like something sacred we weren't allowed to touch, something we had to earn. The young flight attendant had dropped it while serving the row behind us. She didn't even notice. Or she pretended not to. Just walked away, like it wasn't her problem. Or maybe we weren't her problem. Mom didn't move at first. Her eyes followed the fork, her lips pressed into a line. I stared at it, at her, at the fork again. Then, slowly, she unbuckled her seatbelt, reached for her napkin, and bent forward. Her movement was quiet, graceful, like she was dancing at a funeral. She picked up the fork with the cloth, carefully, gently, as if it were something fragile, something already broken. When she sat back up, her face hadn't changed. Not really. Still calm, still composed, but I saw her fingers tremble as she wiped the fork. Just for a second, barely enough to notice. She placed it on my tray and smiled. That smile. It wasn't happy. It wasn't proud. It was a smile I didn't understand yet. Tight, polite, like the kind people wear at funerals or courtrooms. "Go ahead, sweetheart," she said. "Your food will get cold." I looked down at my tray. The salad was limp. The chicken was grayish. But I picked up the fork, because what else could I do? As I ate, I noticed how quiet everything felt. The cabin wasn't silent. People were chatting, laughing, clinking glasses. But somehow, none of that sound touched our row. It was like we were underwater. Every so often, someone looked over, then looked away. Fast, like they'd been caught staring, like we were contagious. I chewed slowly. My mouth was dry. Mom sipped her water like nothing was wrong. Her posture was perfect. Her chin slightly raised. Her eyes fixed on the movie screen she wasn't really watching. I felt something strange twist in my chest. Like embarrassment, but not quite. Like I was embarrassed for her, and also angry at her, and at myself. Why wasn't she doing anything? Didn't grown-ups stop people from being mean? Didn't moms always make things right? I set my fork down, quietly. "Mom," I whispered. She turned. Her eyes were warm, but tired. "Yes, baby? Why don't they like us?" The question floated between us, suspended in the recycled air. Her lips parted slightly. She blinked once, then again, like the words had surprised her too. She reached for my hand. "It's not about you, Lily." "Then who is it about?" "It's about them," she said. "Sometimes people don't know how to act when someone doesn't fit the picture they expect." I tried to understand. "Because of our clothes. Maybe. Maybe because we don't look like everyone else here. Maybe because I didn't flash a black card or ask for champagne." She smiled again. That same tight smile. I looked at her, and suddenly, she didn't seem so calm anymore. She seemed small, tired, like she'd been holding something very heavy for a long time, and I felt bad. Because part of me had been mad at her, for not yelling, for not fighting back. But now, I saw it. She was fighting. Just not the way I thought. She was choosing silence like a weapon, and it looked like it hurt. The flight attendants passed again. Jessica was among them, still poised, still smiling at everyone else. When she reached our row, she paused, just long enough to show us she saw we were there. Then she turned her head and kept walking. That moment burned. Mom's hand tightened on mine. I looked around the cabin. Everyone else was laughing, drinking wine, tapping on laptops, listening to music. And we were just there, sitting in our little bubble of being ignored. It felt worse than being yelled at. "Do they think we don't belong here?" I asked. Mom's jaw tightened. Her eyes softened. "No," she said, "but maybe they hope we'll believe we don't." The fork on my tray gleamed under the light. It was just a fork, but not really. It was a reminder of what they thought we were, of what we weren't allowed to be. Mom looked down at it too. Then she did something unexpected. She chuckled, not loudly, just a small sound in her throat. And then she smiled again, different this time, not tight, not polite. This smile had teeth and sadness and fire. "I've seen this before," she murmured. "I just forgot what it felt like." "What do you mean?" I asked. She shook her head. "Nothing, baby. Eat. We'll land soon." But I could tell something had changed in her, slightly, quietly, like a shift in the air before a storm. And I wasn't sure if I felt relieved or afraid. After the dinner trays were cleared and the lights dimmed again, the plane sank into that soft quiet that always follows a meal. Passengers reclined in their seats. Some put on eye masks. Others scrolled endlessly through movies they wouldn't finish. The soft hum of the engines was the only constant sound. Well, that, and the occasional clink of glasses or polite laughter from across the cabin. But in our row, everything still felt cold. I shifted in my seat, trying not to look as uncomfortable as I felt. My mom was flipping through the in-flight magazine, not really reading, just turning pages like it gave her something to do. She hadn't said much since handing me the fork. Her silence used to feel like peace. Now it felt like pressure. I needed noise, movement, something. So I told her, "I'm going to the bathroom." She nodded without looking up. "Take your time." I slid out of my seat and made my way down the aisle. The lavatory was empty, its mirror too bright, too honest. I washed my hands twice, just to stay there a little longer. When I finally stepped out, the curtain near the galley swayed slightly, left ajar just enough to let sound through. And then I heard it. Jessica's voice. I'd recognize it anywhere. "Did you see her bend down to pick up that fork herself?" A dry laugh followed. "Desperate. I mean, what do you expect? Probably some community donation seat." Another voice joined in, sharper, younger. "They always act like they belong here. But please, I doubt she even tipped the porter." My heart stopped. I don't know how long I stood there. The air in my lungs turned to stone. The voices blurred, but the words were already cemented in my mind. Desperate. Community donation. Don't belong. The door to the lavatory behind me clicked shut from another passenger, startling me back into motion. I walked quickly, head down, not sure where I was going until I found myself back at our row. Mom looked up when I arrived. You okay? I nodded, but my hands were clenched. I slid into my seat and stared at the tray table. My skin felt hot. My face burned. I didn't know if it was from shame or rage or both. She tilted her head. Lily? I heard them, I said quietly. Jessica and the other one. Mom didn't blink. What did they say? They think we're here on charity. Her expression didn't change, not even a flinch. That almost made me angrier. You're not going to do anything? I whispered. Say something? Call someone? She looked away for a moment, then back at me. Why? I blinked. Because they're being mean. Yes, she agreed calmly, but not clever. That threw me off. What? She reached into her purse slowly, pulled out her phone, and unlocked it with a soft swipe of her finger. Sometimes, baby, she said gently, words aren't enough, and sometimes silence isn't either. I leaned over, trying to peek at the screen, but she held it just out of sight. Her fingers typed quickly, almost rhythmically. I couldn't see the message, but I saw the name at the top of the screen. It wasn't a name, just one word. You. I recognized that. It was what she called Dad in her phone. She stared at the screen for a moment, unmoving. Then, with a breath so quiet it barely registered, she tapped send. The phone made no sound, no buzz, but I felt it like thunder. Mom? She locked the screen and slipped the phone back into her bag. That's it? I asked. What did you say? Just what needed to be said. I wanted to shake her, to beg her to explain, but something about the way she sat, still composed, stopped me. She looked so calm, too calm. That scared me more than anything Jessica could say. I turned away and stared out the window. All I could see was darkness. No stars, no ground, just the reflection of my own confused face. Somewhere deep inside, a thought started to whisper, what had Mom just done? Minutes passed, maybe more. I lost track of time. Then I felt it. A vibration, just one. Her bag didn't ring, no alert, just a brief hum, like a warning. I turned toward her. She hadn't moved, but I could tell her whole body was on edge, like a cat waiting to pounce. She reached into the bag, pulled out the phone, didn't let me see the screen this time, but I saw her thumb tremble. Then she placed the phone back, slowly, like setting a trap. Mom, I said again. Her smile returned. Not the warm kind, not even the tight one. This one was different. It was the smile of someone who knew something the rest of the room didn't. And suddenly, I realized this wasn't over. It hadn't even started yet. I didn't know a plane could feel this small. The rows had always felt wide to me, the ceilings high, the windows like portals to another world. But now, after Mom's silent message and the single vibration that followed, everything felt tighter, like the air around us had thickened, like the lights were dimmer even though they hadn't changed. Jessica hadn't come back down our aisle since dinner. The other attendants avoided our row too, gliding past like ghosts. But I could feel something building in the air, something brewing. Mom sat still, looking like she always did, unbothered, unreadable. But I noticed the way she tapped her fingers against the armrest, just once every 10 seconds. Exactly. Like a clock, like she was counting something. I was about to ask her what she was waiting for when it happened. Jessica returned. Her heels clicked sharply against the carpet, her face a mask of professionalism. But her eyes, when they landed on us, betrayed something else. Smugness. She stopped beside our row, her voice suddenly loud, too loud. Ma'am, she said, loud enough for everyone in the cabin to hear. As I've told you multiple times, personal electronic devices must be turned off at this stage of the flight. Heads turned. My stomach dropped. People looked away from their screens, their books. Some turned in their seats. Others leaned out of their pods. I could feel the heat of every gaze pressing against my skin. Mom didn't move. Jessica continued, her tone sharp. voice ringing like a bell. "This is a serious matter of flight safety. If you cannot comply with FAA regulations, we will have to take further action." Mom slowly turned her head. "I'm not using any device." "But you were," Jessica snapped, eyes gleaming. "Just moments ago, I saw you, and we both know that's against policy." My breath caught. She was doing this on purpose, making a scene, painting Mom as a rule breaker, a threat. "I wasn't sending anything during restricted times," Mom said calmly. "We're cruising. It's permitted." Jessica raised her chin. "That's not for you to decide." Then she looked around, at the other passengers, at the silent rows, and raised her voice even more. "For your own safety and the safety of those around you, I'm asking you one final time to surrender your device." My heart pounded. I looked at Mom. Her jaw was tight, her body still. Jessica reached out, toward Mom's bag. "No!" I shouted. Everyone jumped. My voice bounced off the cabin walls. I shot to my feet, trembling. "Don't touch my mom!" Jessica froze. So did the rest of the cabin. She turned to me, her face twisted with disbelief. "Excuse me?" "You're being mean," I yelled. "You've been mean this whole time. You dropped our fork. You didn't serve us, and now you're lying." "Sit down, young lady," Jessica hissed, her mask of control cracking. Mom stood too. "Lily," but Jessica shoved forward. "I will not be assaulted by a child." Her hand lashed out, not a slap, but a push. I stumbled back, tripped, and fell. I landed on my side, my arms scraping against the edge of the seat. My white dress, my favorite one, brushed the floor. I felt the dirty carpet against my skin. The cabin went silent. Utterly, completely silent. Jessica's face drained of color. The other flight attendants froze mid-step. Passengers stared, stunned, unsure of what they had just seen. And then, a door slammed open. Everyone turned. The cockpit door. A man emerged in uniform, hat in hand, his face pale. Lines of sweat gleamed at his temples. The captain. He didn't say a word, not at first. His eyes swept across the scene, me on the floor, Mom reaching for me, Jessica still frozen mid-motion. And then he bowed. Not a nod, not a polite dip. A full, deep bow. "I apologize," he said, voice tight with emotion. "On behalf of this crew and this airline, I deeply apologize." Jessica's mouth opened, then closed. The captain turned toward her. "Jessica Stone, step away, now. But now!" His voice cracked like a whip. She took a step back, another. The other attendants looked at each other, confused and terrified. The captain gestured to the galley. "All crew, report to the rear cabin, immediately." They moved like ghosts. The passengers watched in shocked silence. Mom knelt beside me, helping me up. Her hand was gentle, but her face, I had never seen her like that. Cold, blank, as if her emotions had been locked in a vault. I leaned into her, shaking. The captain looked around the cabin. "To all passengers, please accept my sincere apology for the disruption. The matter is being addressed." He turned, gave Mom a look, not of pity, not even of fear, of understanding. Then he returned to the cockpit. Mom held me tightly, not saying a word. All around us, the silence remained. But I knew, deep in my chest, everything had just changed. I thought people would clap. After everything Jessica had done, after she pushed me, humiliated us, after Mom stood there silent but unshaken, and the captain bowed before her in front of everyone, I thought, maybe, someone would applaud. Say something, whisper finally, or serves her right. But no one moved. They sat, stiff and quiet, pretending to go back to their champagne and tablets, eyes flicking down, avoiding ours like we were radioactive. Jessica and the rest of the crew had disappeared into the rear of the plane. Gone, just like that. Swept away like dirt after a storm. The air still buzzed with the aftershock, but no one said a word. I was back in my seat now. My elbow stung where I had hit the tray edge, but I didn't say anything. Mom sat beside me, calm as ever, eyes on the dark window. Her hand was resting on her lap, the same hand she had used to steady me when I stood, the same hand that hadn't flinched when everything exploded. She looked tired, not relieved, not satisfied, just tired. The captain's words still echoed in my head. "Jessica Stone, step away, now." Like a switch flipped. One sentence and a whole crew vanished. It didn't feel real. It felt like a movie, but quieter. Too quiet. "Are they gone forever?" I asked softly. Mom didn't answer right away. She blinked slowly, as if waking from a deep thought. "They've been removed from duty," she said. "What happens next? Depends." "On what?" She hesitated. "On what kind of system they're part of." That didn't make sense to me. I wanted to ask more, but just then, her handbag buzzed. Not loud, just a single, soft vibration. A short, sharp thrum. We both looked at it. She picked it up slowly, unzipped the bag, pulled out her phone. I leaned closer. She didn't stop me this time. The screen lit up. One notification. Not from you, not from Dad, but from someone else. Chairman, AA Board Direct. I didn't recognize the name, but from the way her body stiffened, the way her thumb hovered over the screen without tapping it, I knew this was big. "Who's that?" I whispered. She stared at the screen. "The chairman of the Allied Airlines board." "That sounds important." "It is." She tapped the notification. A message appeared, short, direct. "Situation acknowledged. Handling underway. Await directives." That's all. No greeting, no emotion. But I felt it, the same way you feel thunder rumble before it hits. A message like that didn't come from someone casual, and Mom didn't smile. She didn't relax. She just sat there, still as stone. "What did you tell them?" I asked. She turned to me slowly. Her eyes weren't soft this time. "They asked what happened. I told them the truth." "And now?" "Now we wait." I looked around the cabin. Passengers whispered, eyes darting toward us, then away again. I saw the man in the row ahead pull out his phone and start typing rapidly. A woman behind us stared too long, then quickly adjusted her scarf. "They're scared of us," I said, almost in disbelief. Mom gave the smallest nod. "Power frightens people more than cruelty." That sentence sat heavy in the air. "They think you're someone important." "I'm not," she replied. "But your father is, and people assume I carry the same weight." I frowned. "But you didn't yell. You didn't threaten them." "That's not how real power works." Her voice was low, quiet, but firm. I didn't understand it all, but I felt it. The way her stillness carried more gravity than anyone else's shouting. I looked down at my lap, where my hands were clenched. "I don't want them to be scared of us." "I know," she said gently. "Neither do I." I glanced at her phone again. "What happens now?" She placed it back in her bag. "Whatever they decide. But decisions like these, they come fast. Too fast." She wasn't wrong. Minutes later, a new crew came down the aisle. Different uniforms, different smiles. This time, they stopped at our row first. A tall man with neat hair and nervous eyes bent slightly at the waist. "Ms. Carter," he said carefully, "we'd like to extend our apologies. Would you prefer to disembark at a private gate upon arrival?" Mom didn't blink. "I would prefer that my daughter gets a good night's sleep." "Of course, everything has been arranged." He handed her a card, black, embossed, VIP services. "Thank you," she said softly. The man nodded and retreated. I looked up at her. "Are we going to get off the plane alone?" She nodded. "They want us gone before the press finds out." "The press?" "They're fast." I didn't ask how she knew. The rest of the flight passed slowly. The food returned, reheated and served by trembling hands. Water was refilled before we could ask. Pillows fluffed. Headphones replaced. Everything. Too much. It didn't feel like kindness. It felt like fear. And fear tasted cold. I leaned my head against the window and stared at the clouds. My reflection stared back. I wasn't proud. I wasn't excited. I was confused. Because somehow, even though we hadn't done anything wrong, it felt like we'd broken something. The plane touched down with a low rumble, and I felt my stomach lift for a second, then settle. People clapped softly, half-heartedly, mostly out of habit. But in our row, there was no applause. Just the silence that had followed us since takeoff. The seatbelt sign blinked off. Passengers began to shift, gather their things. The crew made an announcement, something about remaining seated. But before any of them could stand, a man in a dark suit approached our row. He bowed slightly toward my mom. "Ms. Carter," he said, voice low, professional. "We'll be escorting you and your daughter through the private gate. Please follow me." My heart beat faster. Mom nodded once and rose to her feet. I followed her, clutching my little backpack. We walked down the aisle first, and the weight of everyone's eyes bore into my back like pins. Some passengers looked curious, some embarrassed, others afraid. I could feel it now, this invisible shield around us. Not respect, not admiration, fear. The cabin door opened, and we stepped out into the jet bridge. Not the usual crowded tunnel with a line of people, but a quiet, carpeted passageway with velvet ropes and polished brass railings. At the end of it was a set of double glass doors. They slid open as we approached. And that's when I saw them. A line of people. Suits, ties, lanyards. Some held clipboards. Others stood with hands folded in front of them. A few were clearly airport executives. Maybe airline officials too. All lined up in a perfect row, heads slightly bowed, eyes fixed on my mother. I stopped walking. The air felt too thick. "Who are they?" I whispered. Mom didn't answer. As we approached, the line of officials did something I had only ever seen in movies. They bowed. Deep, respectful, choreographed. And in the center of them stood a man I had never seen before, tall, gray-haired, his suit tailored so sharply it looked like it could cut glass. He didn't bow. He simply nodded at my mom and said, "Mrs. Carter." Mom gave him a slight nod back. "Thank you for your patience," he said. "We will speak with you privately once you're comfortable." She didn't reply. She simply placed her hand gently on my shoulder and guided me forward. I felt my feet move, but my brain wasn't catching up. None of it made sense. These people, important people, were treating us like we were royalty, like Mom was someone untouchable, and I didn't know why. Was it the message she sent? Was it Dad? Or was it something more? We stepped into a waiting lounge, leather seats, marble counters, warm lighting that felt more like a hotel than an airport. A woman offered us tea. Mom accepted. I said nothing. Then, from the far end of the room, I saw movement. Someone stumbling in. Someone familiar. Jessica. Her hair was messier now, her uniform wrinkled, her lipstick smudged. But her eyes, that same cold sharpness was gone, replaced by something else. Panic. Desperation. 2 attendants flanked her, trying to guide her out through a side door. But she resisted, shaking them off. She spotted us, and everything stopped. Her eyes locked onto my mom. She froze for half a second, then stormed forward, her voice rising, shrill and raw. "You ruined my life!" Everyone turned. "You think this makes you a hero?" she spat. "You think just because your husband's some corporate god, you can destroy people?" The guards reached for her, but she shook them again. "I was doing my job." Mom didn't flinch. I grabbed her hand. My chest thudded so loud I thought Jessica could hear it. "I've worked 20 years for this airline," Jessica screamed. 20 years, and now it's gone. All of it. For what? For a glass of juice? For a brat who couldn't sit still? I felt the sting in that word, brat, like she slapped me again without touching me. Mom finally spoke. "You pushed my daughter." Jessica's face twisted. "Because she screamed at me." "And why do you think she screamed?" Jessica opened her mouth. No words came out. Mom's voice was steady. "This isn't about power. It's about dignity. Something you took the moment you decided we didn't belong." Jessica stepped back. She looked around the room as if hoping someone, anyone, would defend her. No one did. One of the officials nodded to the guards. They gently but firmly escorted her through the side door. Her last words echoed as she was taken away. "You're no better than me. You just hide it better." Then she was gone, and the silence returned. I turned to Mom. She didn't look proud. She looked haunted. Her hand was still in mine, but it felt colder now. "Was she right?" I asked softly. She didn't answer, not yet, but her eyes, those tired, dark eyes, told me everything. The lounge was so quiet I could hear the sound of my own breathing. The soft leather of the couch groaned slightly as I shifted in my seat, but no one else moved. No one spoke. The thick glass windows kept the outside world at bay, sealing in the hush like a museum exhibit. Mom sat across from my dad, who had arrived shortly after Jessica was escorted away. He looked crisp in his charcoal suit, freshly pressed as always, not a wrinkle in sight. His hair was slicked back, his cufflinks gleaming. Power sat on his shoulders like a second skin. He was sipping tea. "I've spoken to the board," he said. "They've accepted full responsibility. The airline CEO has personally apologized. That woman, Jessica, won't be flying again." His tone was casual, controlled, like he was talking about a contract, not a person. I glanced at Mom. She sat with her back straight, legs crossed, hands in her lap. The tea in front of her was untouched, steam long faded. Her eyes were fixed on the floor. Dad leaned back, satisfied. Everything's been handled. But Mom didn't say a word, not even a nod. "Evelyn?" he asked. She blinked slowly. "Yes," she said softly. "It's over." He smiled, but it faded when he looked at her face more closely. "You don't seem pleased." I shifted again on the couch, uncomfortable in the stillness. Then, without thinking, I asked, "Mom, do you think she got hurt?" The words floated across the room and dropped like pebbles in a pond. I didn't mean physically, I meant something deeper. I didn't know how to say it, but Mom understood. Her eyes flicked toward me, then back down. Dad raised an eyebrow. "She's lucky she wasn't arrested. What she did was unacceptable. You should be proud of your mother." "I am," I said quickly. But I looked at her again. She didn't look proud. She looked like someone who had walked through a fire and wasn't sure if she'd made it out. Dad continued, "What else would you have done? Let her go? Let her humiliate our family?" Mom whispered something then. We barely heard her. "What?" he asked. She looked up, finally. "I didn't want to destroy her," she said. "I just wanted her to stop." Dad frowned. "Evelyn, you didn't destroy her. She did that to herself." "Did she?" Mom asked, her voice suddenly fragile. "Or did I?" A pause, a long one. Then she said something I'll never forget. "I sent one message. One. And a woman lost everything. Her job, her reputation, her future. I watched her beg, I watched her cry. And I just stood there." I didn't understand everything she was saying, but I felt it. The weight behind her words, the ache in her chest. "She made a choice," Dad said firmly. "She pushed our daughter. That's not forgivable." "She was cruel, yes," Mom replied. "But I became something else. I became what I never wanted to be." "What's that?" I asked quietly. She looked at me, her eyes shining, not with pride, not with power, but with something darker. "A person who uses silence to destroy." Dad set his cup down, the clink louder than it needed to be. "She made her bed. You gave her consequences." Mom shook her head. I didn't give her consequences. I gave her no chance to fix it. But she didn't want to fix it, he snapped. She mocked you. She endangered Lily. I know, Mom said, barely above a whisper. But I still wonder, what if I'd said something instead of staying quiet? What if I had just stood up and demanded an apology? Wouldn't that have been enough? Dad didn't reply. She turned to him fully now. You told me once, power is best used when no one notices. But this time, everyone noticed. Because they needed to. No, because I made sure they did. Her voice cracked on the last word, and that's when I saw it. Her mask slipping. The tears she'd held back since the plane, since the fork, since Jessica's scream. She wasn't a statue anymore. She was a woman unraveling. I didn't want to win like this, she said. Not with fear, not with silence. I didn't want Lily to see me like that. My chest tightened, but I said nothing, because I didn't know what to say. I had never seen Mom cry before. Not even when Grandpa died. Not when Dad was away for months. Not when I broke my arm. She was always the strong one, but now she sat there crumbling in silence, hands shaking as they clutched the edges of her coat like it was the only thing holding her together. Dad stood abruptly. I'll arrange for transportation, he said, almost too fast. We'll leave in 20 minutes. He left the room, his shoes clicking against the marble floor. I stood and crossed over to Mom's side, sliding onto the seat beside her. She looked at me, and I asked the only thing I could think of. Do you regret it? She hesitated. Then she whispered, I regret not speaking. And that answer, it stayed with me. Long after the lounge, long after the trip. It followed me into dreams, into school, into quiet moments when I stared out windows and wondered what I would have done if I were her. Because that day, I learned something I didn't expect. Sometimes winning doesn't feel like victory. Sometimes it feels like loss in disguise. A week passed, then another. We were home, but nothing felt settled. The house was warm, familiar. Our things were in their places. My room was the same, my books stacked neatly, my favorite stuffed rabbit still sitting by the window. But something in the air was different, like the house was holding its breath, waiting. And Mom was gone, in a way I didn't understand. She moved through the house like a shadow of herself. She made breakfast. She did laundry. She even helped me with my homework. But she wasn't really there. Not in the way she used to be. She didn't laugh. She didn't smile. She didn't tell stories at bedtime. She just sat a lot. Sometimes in the kitchen, sometimes in the garden, sometimes by the piano she hadn't touched in months. One night I got up to get water and heard quiet sobs from the bathroom. I pushed the door open just a little. She sat on the floor, knees pulled to her chest, her phone on the tiled floor beside her. Her eyes were red, her face pale. And in her lap was a folder. I stepped back before she could see me, my heart thudding. I didn't know what was in that folder, but I knew it mattered. The next day, I found it left on the kitchen counter. Not hidden, not locked away. Just there, like she wanted someone to see it. Inside were papers, a short report, notes, a few printed screenshots. All about Jessica, her full name, her employment history, her performance reviews. And then, buried halfway through, a note. Primary caregiver for elderly mother. Advanced dementia, late stage. Sole provider. I froze. Mom had found out. Jessica wasn't just a cruel flight attendant. She was a daughter who worked full-time, sometimes double shifts, to afford home care for her mother. She had requested vacation leave multiple times, but been denied due to understaffing. She had been reprimanded twice for emotional reactivity, both times within a month of increased medical emergencies. And she was fired because of us, because of one message, one moment. I sat at the table staring at the folder, not even blinking. When Mom came in, she didn't scold me for reading it. She didn't even look surprised. She poured herself coffee, sat down across from me, and looked me straight in the eyes. I asked a friend to look into her situation, she said quietly. I nodded. I read it. She didn't move. She's not a monster, Lily. I know. She made a terrible choice, but so did I. I waited. Then she said something that chilled me. I didn't send that message to stop the harm. I sent it because I was angry. The air between us turned still. I told myself it was justice, she said. But it wasn't. It was revenge. And now she has no income, no insurance, and a dying parent to care for. I whispered, "Is it too late?" Mom looked down at her hands. "I don't know." A beat passed. Then she stood, walked to the phone, and made a call. I didn't hear what she said, but her voice was low, firm, intent. When she hung up, she came back to me. "I'm going to try," she said. "Try what?" "To fix what I broke." 3 days later, we stood outside an apartment building I didn't recognize. It was old, narrow, and nothing like the gated community we lived in. The paint peeled from the balconies. The steps creaked. A rusted buzzer hung from the wall. Mom knocked softly on the door of apartment 4C. There was no answer. She knocked again. A minute later, the door cracked open. Jessica. Her hair was pulled back messily. She wore a sweatshirt that had seen better days. Her face was bare. No makeup, no mask, just skin and bone and fatigue. When she saw us, her eyes widened. She didn't speak. Neither did we. Then she narrowed her eyes. "Are you here to gloat?" Mom shook her head. "I'm here to apologize." Jessica's lips curled. "Bit late for that." "Maybe," Mom said, "but I'm doing it anyway." Jessica stared. "Why now?" "Because I know," Mom said gently, "about your mother, about everything." That stopped her. She leaned against the doorframe, breathing hard. "She's getting worse," Jessica whispered. "The home nurse quit last week. I can't afford another." Mom took something from her purse, a folded envelope. "I spoke with my husband. The airline's board will be reviewing your case, and I've asked them to reinstate you, not as a flight attendant, but in a role that lets you care for your mom." Jessica didn't move. "This isn't charity," Mom added. "It's responsibility. Mine." Jessica's mouth trembled. "I hated you," she said. "Still kind of do." "I understand." Jessica took the envelope. Her fingers shook. Then, without warning, she stepped back and closed the door, not slamming it, just closing it. Mom and I stood there for a long time before walking away. But something inside her had shifted. Her shoulders were no longer slumped. Her eyes looked clearer, and her hand, when she took mine, felt warm again. "Mom?" I asked. "Yes?" "Do you think she'll forgive you?" She squeezed my hand. "I don't know, but I can forgive myself a little more now." And that, somehow, was enough. We returned the next day. This time the sky was gray, hanging heavy over the apartment complex like a thick blanket. I clutched Mom's hand tighter than usual. Neither of us spoke on the ride over. She drove quietly, her eyes focused, not on the road exactly, but on something deeper, somewhere far away inside her mind. I could feel her fear. It wasn't loud. It didn't shake. It sat still in the car, like a quiet passenger. We parked near the same cracked curb, walked up the same chipped steps. The hallway smelled of old paint and detergent. Apartment 4C still looked the same. Peeling number on the door, dented mailbox, nothing special. Mom paused. I could feel her breathing change, just slightly. She knocked. Once, twice, 3 times. We waited. At first, no answer. Then the sound of slow footsteps. A soft shuffle. The door opened, but only an inch. Jessica. Her eyes were darker today, circled in shadows. She didn't say anything right away. Her gaze fell to me, then rose to meet Mom's. "I told you yesterday there's nothing left to say," she muttered. Mom didn't step forward. She didn't demand anything. She simply bowed her head. "I know, but I needed to try again." Jessica scoffed. Why? You got what you wanted. Your justice, your headlines, your silence. I didn't want silence, Mom said. I wanted accountability. But I confused the two, and I acted out of anger, not reason. Jessica's hand tightened around the doorknob. So what? You're here to be the bigger person? To teach me something? No, Mom whispered. I'm here to tell you I was wrong. That stopped Jessica. She blinked. I saw it. The flicker of disbelief, like her brain had to reroute. Her lips parted, but no words came out. I weaponized power, Mom said, and I wrapped it in silence. I wanted to humiliate you because I was humiliated. And I taught my daughter that power wins, instead of showing her how healing begins. Jessica looked at me again. Her eyes softened for just a second. Then she frowned. I was awful, she said. I treated you both terribly. I don't need your pity. This isn't pity, Mom replied. It's responsibility. Jessica's mouth trembled. She turned away from the door, like she might shut it again. But she didn't. Instead, she leaned her forehead against the frame. I haven't slept in 2 days, she murmured. I haven't figured out how to tell my mother I can't pay for her nurse next month. Mom didn't flinch. I'm sorry. Jessica turned around, her back still to us. You don't get it. You came in with quiet power and I snapped because I knew you didn't have to say a word to ruin me. You just had to exist. I didn't understand it all, but I could feel it in her voice. How raw it was. How close to breaking. Then she turned, and I saw something that startled me more than her anger had. Tears. Jessica Stone, the woman who had looked at us like we didn't belong, the one who had towered over my mother and pushed me in a fit of power, was crying. But not because she was sad, because she didn't understand. She didn't know how to take this version of Mom, this woman who wasn't fighting back, who wasn't claiming anything, who was just standing there. I don't get it, she said, voice cracking. Why are you being kind to me? Mom didn't answer right away. She stepped forward, just one step. Because I don't want to live in a world where kindness only belongs to the people who behave perfectly. Jessica looked like she'd been slapped. The door opened wider. She stepped aside. Come in, she said hoarsely. Just don't talk like that. I can't handle it. We entered. The apartment was small, a little cluttered. Pictures on the wall. A framed photo of a woman, Jessica's mother, I guessed, smiling in a garden. A medical recliner in the corner. Oxygen tanks by the window. Jessica didn't offer us anything. She didn't sit. She just stood there, rubbing her arms. I don't know how to do this, she admitted. You don't have to, Mom said. I just wanted you to know your job might be gone, but your value isn't. Jessica let out a broken laugh. Don't say things like that. It makes me want to believe you. I spoke then, quietly. I think I do. She looked at me, surprised. I was scared of you, I said, but now I feel sorry for you, and I didn't think both could be true. Jessica wiped her face, shaking her head. This is so messed up. It is, Mom said, but that's what makes it real. There was a silence that followed. Not heavy, not cold. Just silence. The kind that wraps itself around two people who don't know what to say, but are brave enough to stay anyway. When we left, Jessica didn't say goodbye, but she didn't close the door until we were at the stairs, and that was something. Mom didn't call him right away. After we left Jessica's apartment, she sat in the car for a long time. She didn't start the engine. She didn't say anything. Her hands stayed on the steering wheel, fingers lightly curled, knuckles pale. I sat in the back, watching her through the rearview mirror. Outside, the sky was still gray. A slow drizzle dotted the windshield, but neither of us moved to wipe it away. Are you okay? I finally asked. She nodded once, but it wasn't convincing. Just thinking. It wasn't until late that night, long after dinner, long after I had gone to bed and snuck back out, that I saw her pick up the phone. She stood in the kitchen in her robe, the soft light from the stove illuminating just half her face. She stared at the screen for a long time before she finally pressed the call button. The name on the screen was just one word: you. It rang once, twice. Then I heard his voice, Dad's voice, crisp, slightly annoyed. "Yes? I need your help," Mom said. Her voice was calm, but there was something in it I hadn't heard before, something steady, something strong. "Evelyn, what's wrong?" "I made a mistake." Silence on the other end. "I went too far," she said, "and I want to fix it." He didn't respond. "I need you to contact the board. Ask them to review the dismissal of Jessica Stone. I'm not asking for a full reinstatement. I know the politics. But a reassignment. Something dignified. Something real." He sighed. "Why? After everything?" "Because it's what's right. And I need our daughter to see that even adults clean up their messes." He hesitated. "You don't need my permission. I need your access." Another pause. "Are you sure?" "Yes," she said. "I'm not doing this as your wife. I'm doing this as someone who finally understands what power should look like." There was a longer silence. Then Dad said quietly, "I'll make the call." She exhaled. It wasn't relief. It was resolve. "Thank you." When she hung up, she didn't move for a long time. I crept back to bed before she noticed me, but I couldn't sleep, because something in her had changed, not just softened, but sharpened. She wasn't trying to win anymore. She was trying to restore. A week passed, then another. Then, one Saturday morning, Mom got a letter. A physical one. White envelope, no return address. Inside was a simple note. Reinstated, Customer Care, Accessibility Division. Attached was an employee ID and Jessica's photo, and a short memo. Effective immediately. Mom said nothing. She folded the paper, placed it in a drawer, and told me to get dressed. "We're going to the airport," she said. "Why?" She didn't answer. She just smiled. And this time, it reached her eyes. The terminal buzzed with the usual energy. Rolling suitcases, fast footsteps, voices over the intercom. But Mom led me not to check in, not to security, but to the customer care office tucked near the side of the arrivals hall. A man in uniform greeted us. "You're expected," he said. He led us through a back corridor, down a ramp, and into a glass-walled room filled with monitors and headsets. Staff moved efficiently, answering calls, coordinating wheelchair requests, adjusting itineraries. In the far corner, facing away from us, stood Jessica. She was in a Navy uniform, different from the flight crew one. No heels, no red lipstick. Her hair was in a simple ponytail. She was speaking gently to an elderly woman in a wheelchair, helping adjust her scarf, speaking low and kindly. And then I froze. The woman, the one in the chair. I had seen that face before, not in person, but in the photo on Jessica's wall. Jessica's mother. She was here. She was the one being helped, gently, with a level of care I hadn't expected. Jessica turned then, and saw us through the glass. Her face went pale, but then she saw that Mom wasn't here to gloat. She was just here. Jessica excused herself, walked out to us slowly. "I didn't expect to see you," she said. "I wanted to see for myself," Mom replied. That the apology meant something. Jessica nodded. "It did." She looked back at her mother, who was now laughing with one of the assistants. "She's happy," Jessica said softly. "She doesn't know everything, but she's comfortable again, and I get to go home at night without worrying how to pay for her meds." Mom smiled. Jessica blinked. "I didn't say thank you." "You don't have to." Jessica shook her head. "But I want to, and I'm sorry too." They stood there, not enemies, not friends, just two women who had collided in the wrong way and somehow found a new path forward. I stepped closer. "Your mom looks nice." Jessica smiled at me, for real this time. "She's the strongest person I know." I looked up at Mom. "She's not the only one." Jessica looked between us and said, Maybe one day, I'll tell my daughter this story too, if I ever have one. She reached into her pocket, pulled out a small envelope, and handed it to Mom. I wrote this, a letter, just something to say, properly. Mom nodded and took it. We left shortly after. In the car, Mom didn't open the envelope, not yet. She just placed it on the dashboard and said, "Sometimes doing the wrong thing for the right reason still leaves a mess, but trying to clean it, that's what counts." I nodded, and for the first time since the plane, I saw her breathe like the weight was finally lifting. A few weeks passed. Time softened the sharp edges of everything. At least, it seemed that way. The tension in our home, the quiet spaces between conversations, the way Mom would linger by the window or hesitate before answering the phone, began to ease. She smiled more now. Not all the time and not wide, but enough. We went back to regular routines, school drop-offs, grocery runs. Mom even played piano again, just once. Just one slow song. But it filled the house with something it had been missing for a long time, her presence. And then, one ordinary Saturday, we had to fly again. A short trip. Just a weekend conference Dad had to attend. He flew separately. Mom and I went ahead, boarding early to avoid the rush. It was strange being on a plane again. I didn't realize how much I had been dreading it until we stepped through the first-class door. My stomach clenched as we passed rows of seats as I looked for signs. Tight smiles, narrowed eyes. Someone sighing when they saw us. But it didn't come. Instead, everything felt normal, quiet, civil. We took our seats. The plane hadn't started boarding fully yet, so there were only a few passengers around. I sat by the window again. Mom sat beside me, flipping through the safety card like she hadn't read it 1,000 times. And then I saw her, Jessica. She wore the navy blue uniform of the Accessibility Division, a badge clipped neatly to her chest. Her hair was tied back, and she pushed a wheelchair with practiced ease. In it sat an elderly woman, someone's grandmother, no doubt, bundled in a soft shawl, smiling faintly as Jessica spoke to her with care. They stopped just outside the aircraft door. Jessica crouched to adjust the woman's blanket, said something I couldn't hear, then stood and turned. Her eyes landed on us, and for a second, I couldn't breathe. Would she look away? Would she pretend not to see us? Would she tense or freeze? She did none of those. Instead, she straightened, offered the woman's daughter a few kind words, and once the older woman was wheeled inside by another attendant, Jessica stepped just slightly to the side and looked straight at us. Then, she bowed. Not deep, not theatrical, just enough. Enough to say, "I remember." Enough to say, "I'm okay." Enough to say, "Thank you." Mom nodded back. Nothing more. And it was perfect. We didn't speak about it during the flight. We didn't need to. But later, as we waited for our luggage, a staff member approached us, a young woman with red-rimmed glasses and an envelope in hand. "Mrs. Carter?" "Yes." "This is for you, from someone in our Special Services Division." She said it was personal. Mom took the envelope, plain, white, neat handwriting, no name, but I knew who it was from. We got home that evening, after dinner, after pajamas and brushing my teeth. I came back downstairs and found Mom standing by the window with the envelope in her hand. She hadn't opened it yet. "Are you going to read it?" I asked. She turned. "Do you want me to read it with you?" I nodded. She opened it carefully, like something sacred might fall out. Inside was one page, just one, handwritten, neat but slightly uneven, like someone who hadn't written by hand in years, or maybe ever. It read, "Dear Mrs. Carter, I don't think I've written a letter since I was a teenager, so forgive the mess. I've spent a long time being angry at the world, angry at passengers who made my job harder, angry at coworkers who didn't get it, angry at the system, angry at my mother's illness, angry at the fact that no matter how hard I worked, nothing ever seemed to be enough. And that day on the plane, I took it out on you. You and your daughter walked on with grace, and all I saw was a mirror of everything I didn't have. That was my mistake. That was my weakness. But your silence, it didn't destroy me. It showed me what power looks like when it isn't loud. Your apology shocked me, not because I didn't believe it, but because I didn't think anyone would offer me something like that. Not after what I did. And when you asked for me to be given a second chance, you didn't just change my job. You changed how I see people. You changed how I see myself. I still wake up with guilt some mornings. I still snap sometimes when I'm overwhelmed. But now, I remember your words. I remember your daughter's eyes, and I try harder. Not because I owe you, but because you reminded me that kindness isn't something we earn. It's something we choose. Thank you for choosing it with me. Sincerely, Jessica. By the time she finished reading, Mom's hands were trembling slightly. I took the letter from her and folded it carefully. She didn't speak. She just stepped forward and hugged me, tight, like she needed to, like I did too. And in that moment, I understood something. This wasn't a story about who was right and who was wrong. It was about the spaces between us, how we fill them, how we heal them, how we find our way back to each other, even after hurt, even after silence. This wasn't the end. It was a beginning. It rained the next morning, the kind of rain that didn't rush or roar, just a quiet, steady drizzle, like the sky exhaling. I sat on the living room floor with a blanket over my legs, watching it streak down the big window. Drops chased each other like tiny dancers, racing to the sill. Mom was in the kitchen, her soft humming carrying through the quiet house. The kind of sound that made everything feel okay again. I didn't even recognize the tune, but it wrapped around me like a lullaby. She walked into the room with 2 cups of tea, hers and one for me. Warm milk with honey, just the way I liked it. She sat on the couch and patted her lap. I climbed up without saying a word. She held me close. We watched the rain together for a while. Then she said, "You were brave, you know." I blinked. When? On the plane. When you stood up for me. When you screamed. I felt my cheeks warm. I didn't feel brave. "That's usually how it works," she said, smiling. "Bravery doesn't always feel like bravery. Sometimes it feels like fear, just louder." I nodded slowly, taking a sip of my drink. She wrapped her arms around me. "Can I tell you something?" I looked up. "Always. When I was younger, I thought courage meant being the loudest person in the room, the one who never backed down, the one who always had the last word." "And now?" I asked. She ran a hand through my hair. "Now I think courage is knowing when to speak, when to listen, and, maybe hardest of all, when to admit you were wrong." I sat quietly, letting her words settle. "Jessica wasn't the only one who made mistakes," she continued. "I did too, and the hardest part wasn't seeing her hurt. It was realizing I'd taught you the wrong lesson." "But you fixed it," I said. She gave a sad smile. "I tried. That's all we can do. Try. Again and again." I leaned against her chest, listening to her heartbeat. "I don't think you taught me the wrong thing." No. You showed me that being powerful doesn't mean being cruel, and that being sorry doesn't make you weak." She kissed the top of my head. "Then maybe I did something right." We sat like that for a while longer, just the 2 of us. No noise, no schedule, just the rain and the warmth of being close. Then I remembered something. "Mom?" "Yes?" "Jessica's letter, the one she gave you." She nodded. I kept thinking about the last line. Mom looked at me. "What part?" "The part about telling the story to her daughter one day." Her eyes softened. "Yes. I think that's the most important part." She looked at me curiously. "Why?" "Because it means the story didn't stop with her. It didn't stop with us. It keeps going. Maybe her daughter won't ever push someone. Or maybe if someone pushes her, she'll know how to stand up the right way." Mom took that in. And then, as if the thought had been waiting all along, she said, "Stories can do that, can't they? They can ripple. They can echo." I nodded. "Like skipping stones." She smiled. "Exactly." There was a pause. Then she added, "That's why we have to be careful what kind of stories we leave behind." I hugged her tighter. "I want to leave behind a good one," I whispered. "You already are," she said, kissing my forehead. And for the first time in a long time, I believed her. Weeks later, a package arrived in the mail. No return address. Inside, a book, hand-bound, no title on the cover. When we opened it, we found page after page of handwritten notes, thoughts, memories, reflections. At the center of the book, a section titled, "Lessons for My Daughter." The first line read, "This is the story of the woman I thought I hated, and the truth that changed everything." It was Jessica's handwriting. She had started writing her own story, not just to remember, but to pass on. And in it, she told everything. The anger, the fall, the shame, the kindness, the redemption. She wrote about my mom, about me, about the silence that broke her, and the apology that stitched her back together. And in the final paragraph she wrote, "If I ever have a daughter, I will read her this story, not to scare her, not to shame her, but to show her that the world will try to divide her heart into winning and losing, punishing and surviving. And I want her to know, the strongest person I ever met was the woman who stood in silence, took responsibility, and chose kindness again anyway." Mom closed the book slowly. Her hands were trembling again. But this time, it wasn't fear. It was grace. She looked at me, eyes shining. "You want to know a secret?" I nodded. "That's the kind of strong I want to be too." And in that moment, I knew she already was.